Now, all of this sounds like a party. It sounds excessive, and it is. So much so that at the end of 1977, RSO, Robert Stigwood, which is what RSO stands for, Robert Stigwood Organization, bought an article by Nick Cohn about the disco scene in Brooklyn, New York. And he decided to make it into a movie. He asked the Bee Gees, would you be willing to contribute to the soundtrack? And they did, by giving them their album that they were working on. That album turned out to be, and that movie turned out to be, Saturday Night Fever. It doesn't get any bigger than that. In 1978, according to the staff at Criteria, they had more songs charting in the top 10 than New York and LA combined. Miami became the center of the music industry. It's hard to imagine the money that must have been flowing in Miami at the time. I've calculated it to be 7 to 8 songs in the top 10 at all times during that year. I could be exaggerating that, but off and on, that does reflect the truth. Who could imagine this would have died in 2 years, 3 years? Nobody. Nobody could have imagined it. In 1979, Henry Stone put out a song called Ring My Bell by Anita Ward, a disco song. Big disco hit, big part of my childhood, big hit. While that song raced the #1, if I'm correct, in 3 days. He said he's literally told me the fastest song to race the #1 in his entire career. 60 Minutes reported disco is dead. Now, how and why? How and why would anyone say disco is dead when the fastest song of his career to shoot the #1 shot the #1? That doesn't make any sense. At the same time, the Wall Street Journal reported the music industry is on a decline. Labels should start cutting back on expenses. In Miami, they like to think it's a conspiracy. Somebody planted a bug in the media's ear, because 3 independent labels are running the industry that was normally ran by majors. And what's important to say about majors is it's about divisions. If your division is lagging behind the other division in the label, something has to be done. Somebody has to account within the label. How do you compete with a label over here who throws out one single to the market? A 12-inch, which is a brand new invention. A 12-inch single was a brand new invention. What do you do? For the majors, they were grooming artists for 4 albums, 5 albums. The independents didn't do that. They dominated the market. So the theory of conspiracy does have some serious roots, some serious groundwork. How do we say that's true or not? Well, you would certainly have to be connected in the industry to say this connects to that and this is why this happened. But we know one thing. That was in 1979 that Ring My Bell hit. In 1980, what disco hits were there? People like to just chalk it up to a change of a decade. Well, that's funny because decades typically change around the 2nd year. The 50s ended roughly in 62. The 70s began roughly in 72. It has a little bit to do politically, but we can only speculate. But I will certainly say that disco ended in 1980. Single, one fell swoop. Henry Stone, I start calling around. Who can help me out? Who can help me out? Steve Alemo suddenly found his role at TK a little confused. Casey and the Sunshine Band, they had a hit in '79 with Please Don't Go, but they had to go. And they went to Epic. And by they, I mean one man, KC. And he went to Epic. He came back to TK, and TK was not looking so well. Miami was in ruins with these 2 reports. Atlantic stopped sending groups to Criteria to record. You can stay home and record. You don't need to have a vacation in Miami. You don't need paradise to record your album. You can stay home and record your album. Criteria started to fall on hard times. In 1981, Henry Stone filed for bankruptcy. In 1983, Criteria Studios sold. And that ultimately is the end of Miami being the center of the musical world.